We'll call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ask for a moment of silence, please. Okay, thank you. I want to welcome everybody that's here and everybody that's watching or will be watching. Start with roll call. We start with Commissioner Cos today.
Here.
Commissioner Smith, I'm here. Commissioner Doug Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Mike Stephen.
Here.
Commissioner Jeff Culberson.
Here.
All the county commissioners are present. Okay, I don't have anything on the 3-minute comment. I think people are going to be speaking at the 10 o'clock one. So I'll move on to administrative business. Mark, do you have anything?
No, Commissioners, I do not have any administrative business this morning.
I have something that
Go
I'd
right
like
ahead,
to discuss. At the Port Authority meeting yesterday, it was announced that Tonganoxie has received a $1.5 million rescue land grant through the Department of Commerce and the regional office in Denver for the water tower. So I think kudos to Tonganoxie for receiving that funding for their water tower.
Did the city apply for that, or did
Yes.
the Port Authority?
The city applied for the grant, but they just announced in the meeting at the Port Authority yesterday. So I just wanted to make sure that we got that.
Sure.
That was one of the.
Congratulations on the city of Taunton for going after them funds.
Right, they got and receiving the funds. Congratulations.
That's great.
Grants are great.
Commissioner
You're absolutely right, Vicki.
Hempel.
Thank you, Councilman.
Yep, Councilman.
Yeah.
Councilman Hempel.
Good job.
Good job.
Any other commissioner want to say anything before we move on?
I think today, I believe the K7 and Hollingsworth project starts, the turn lanes on that. I think it was March 16th. So that's another.
We like those.
Yeah,
we like those.
Improvement from KDOT. So that's great.
A lot of improvements going on in the county. I'm proud to be part of y'all and the citizens that are doing that. Mike, did you have anything before I move on?
No, but I am just very, very glad to hear we've done really good on these grants, and good grant writers is really important. Kudos, Tonganoxie.
Absolutely. Okay, if there's no one else, I'll go on to the consent agendas. Anything that needs to be pulled off the consent agenda? If not, I'll take a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion a second. Any discussion? Mr. Cos?
Aye.
Aye. Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Stephen?
Aye.
Mr. Culberson?
Aye.
Moving on to formal board action. Consider a motion to accept bid from Lingers for Bridge E18 replacement project in amount not to exceed $1,061,966.80. Morning, Bill.
Morning, Commissioners. Today, for your consideration, is the acceptance of the bid for E18. The project was advertised at Drexel. It was posted on the county website. We did only receive the one bid for the project from Donlinger and Sons. The bid was considerably lower than the engineer's estimate that was most recently provided, and was actually less than the engineer's estimate from 14 months ago that had been previously provided. We did reach out, verify all the figures, and everything was complete on the bid. And so we are pleased with the one bid that we did receive. The project, from the direction of the board, was originally going to be an ARPA project from the work session that we did have. And so we'll be moving forward with the project with your guys' consideration here today. It is located on 235th Street, just south of east of Overstreet.
That's great. I was really surprised, taken back, to be honest, to see the engineer's estimate and and then what the bid came in as.
Great.
It's always good news when you see something like that, especially in today's climate. Any
Bill, I was looking for the time frame that the bridge would be actually closed.
May 15th, I believe, is the start date on the project, and November 1st would be the completion.
So the start of the project's May, but they probably won't actually close the road till. Will they close it right at May? Yeah. What I'm getting at is, after the Millwood Bridge fiasco, where we just kept kicking the can down the street instead of fixing it like we should, and then all of a sudden it broke, and then it was closed for almost 2 years. So this is another major thoroughfare road that this is going to hurt a lot of people when it's closed. So the shorter amount of time we can close it, the better. So I'm glad we're doing this because it's not going to be closed for 2.5 years.
I did one, yeah, I remember
And
that.
to address that, we tried to not provide, generally on a project, we'll provide an early start date and a late start date. For this project, we just provided a start date. So once that date has come, they can start after that date if they would like to shrink their window down, but we shrunk it down considerably and provided them just a one start date, so that way the project won't drag out any longer than necessary.
Good deal.
The difference there is that was immediate, where this one's planned. And
Exactly.
E58, though, was going off of bridge inspections.
Yep. Exactly. And that's
we had a bridge inspection that said it was okay, and then a few months later, the bridge is closed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Then we had to scramble to get funding and everything in place, design, property acquisition, utilities, and so.
Yeah.
That's why you got to plan these.
Yeah.
But I agree. How big of an impact on the? Well, we don't know what the detour route's going to be on this.
Yeah, it's another big one. But
But it has to be
Probably-
done, so.
It has to be done, and it's
Okay.
also it could be starting August 1st, and it'd be a school year. So
yeah,
this
so
is-
about 6 months is way better than 2 years.
Exactly.
Is my whole point.
It's a different type of construction. It's a haunch slab bridge, so
Right.
we'll have the false work built underneath it, and have the deck board on top of it. And we'll move forward. So it's a little bit different construction process than Millwood Road has.
Yeah.
So, hopefully it'll go a little bit faster.
But it'll likely be closed the entire time. I mean, there's not much way, because that's where the work is being done, is at the bridge, so.
Yeah, but that's still way better than over 2 years.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Speaking to a lot of contractors during the bid process, I think a lot of people have grown weary of Stranger Creek. So there was a lot of people who passed on the opportunity just based upon the creek that the project was located.
Yeah.
Wouldn't need a bridge if there wasn't a creek. So,
There's a lot of bridges to be built.
yep.
Commissioners, while we're on this topic and the next topic are kind of tied together in that they're potential use for ARPA funds. Bill and I have been talking about our original work session on ARPA funds, and that the board wanted to allocate the remaining funds to projects that were public works projects that would qualify for ARPA funds, which is why you see this bridge, and there will be another bridge coming forward next week, that are identified in ARPA funds that were originally, that was the plan. As we've allocated these funds, the board has went forward, we've allocated additional funds to more projects. And that, it doesn't necessarily put these bridge projects at risk, but it means that we're going to have to change where they're allocated out of. This one, currently, we would have ARPA funds that would cover it. However, that means that we probably need to hold off on this additional Cushing projects that are the second floor, not the first floor, but the second floor project. We haven't even started on it yet, but that would be the next phase. So the spreadsheet that I sent out, I think last week or the week before, it showed $900,000 allocated to the second floor. I think that money needs to be on hold until we find out what these two bridge projects do and make sure that we have funding for them. Now, one thing that we didn't have originally was the extension office was not originally allocated to ARPA funds, which is $690,000. It's the next item. However, with the change from the Treasury on how those funds could be used, it would now qualify as one of those projects. So I did allocate it there. We could move it back out to capital if we need to, but I just wanted to reiterate that the money is allocated. We don't have an abundance of ARPA funds left over that we're looking for ways to spend it. We have projects, and I just want to let you know that my intention would be that we won't start any projects on the second floor at this time until we find out where we're at with ARPA. And then last week, the NACO had a special announcement meeting that the federal government was considering, and with their new omnibus bill that they just passed, taking away the second half of the ARPA funds. So the second tranche of funds, which are due in May, they actually had that on in the omnibus to remove those and not give them, which would jeopardize all of the remaining projects that are out there. So I just think it's prudent for the board to, at this time, say the funds we have are allocated. We're not listening or hearing any additional requests for funding at this time.
Draw the line.
Yeah, and we'll reevaluate in, I guess that would be 60, 75 days or so. Once the money's in our account, then we'll feel a little bit better about it. But still, we have projects for these funds. We don't need additional projects to allocate them.
So what's the deadline? 4 years? What would be the year that we would have to have these projects completed?
Yeah, you have 3 years to allocate, 4 years to spend. 2024, I believe they have to be spent by the end of 2024. And actually, it's not all of 2024.
Right, it's mid-year.
Yeah,
well, that's still not leaving a lot of time for design and all that. Because I think we need to kind of sit back and see what the economy is going to do here. I think there's going to be another interest rate bump here pretty quick.
No doubt.
So
yes, yeah,
it's coming.
You know, I'm really shocked that this one came in. The bridge we were talking about earlier came in under engineer's estimate. So probably ought to throw another one at them real quick.
We'll have one tomorrow.
Yeah, so. I'm just saying, I'm concerned. We only have so much money, and we only budgeted so much money, and we did not budget for this type of inflation. So
I don't think nobody
just
could.
saying we've got to really watch it.
Yeah, totally agree, Doug. Any other comments? Mark, anything else? Okay, any other commissioners? Mike, you got anything?
Nope.
You ready for a motion?
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion we accept bid from Dodlinger for Bridge E18 replacement project in the amount not to exceed $1,061,966.80.
Second. Motion and second. Any discussion? I'll start the roll call. Commissioner Cos?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I just had one thing to add, and it's something that I just want to compliment our body, the commission. I think that we have been trying on these ARPA funds to put them into infrastructure and things that will last and will be lasting for years and years for Leavenworth County. And I think that is so important for our future of our county. And I think, you could let this money just go down a rat hole, or you could invest it in things that are solid and built. And I think we're doing the right thing. And I just thought we should express that to the public to know too.
And I would also like to say thank you for spending this on infrastructure in the north end of the county, which has been kind of neglected over the last 20 years.
I'm glad to see that myself, Jeff. Okay, we got a motion and a second. I'll start the roll call. Commissioner Collins?
Aye.
Aye. Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Stephen?
Aye.
Commissioner Culberson?
Aye.
Very good. Okay, item B is consider a motion to award bid to Sands Construction for the K-State Extension remodel of the Cushing Building in the amount not to exceed $690,000. Thank you, Bill.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Morning.
So this is the last phase of design that we have for the first floor that we've worked with ACI Bolin with. So we have our Council on Aging area as well as the Crisis Stabilization for the Guidance Center. The K-State Extension was our last design that we had scheduled currently. We had estimates come in. We came in at $599,817. With current issues that we've had, we discussed and added a contingency fund of 15%, roughly, because we have had numerous unexpected issues, mainly the tunnels mainly with as-built that were designed and cut out. We are working with a building that is basically 5 buildings crammed together, and reworking Swiss cheese has been interesting. So I wanted to make sure with inflation as well as what we found in our Council on Aging area that we made sure that we had contingency in there to make sure we were covered. It was under what County Administrator put in for your spreadsheet with contingency, so I still feel good about where we sit with it. It's not saying that we have to spend the full $690, but it's saying that we do have the authority to make sure we do it right the first time.
Yeah, fixing some old problems, no doubt.
Yes, sir.
Okay, commissioners?
Everyone on the Extension Council employees, they all had a part in their remodel, or?
They had parts in their design. They stepped through all the way through with ACI Bolin on the design as well as schematic design, and then they got a virtual walkthrough of some of their area. Everybody there was super excited. They got their one wall that they really wanted in K-State purple, which is the back wall. Everything else will match flooring-wise, paint-wise to Council on Aging so that we can have a contiguous look for the building. Other than that, they're super excited. They can't wait to move in. I think if we handed them boxes today, they'd start packing.
That's good. I've been concerned that they don't have a permanent home since I've been here. So I'd say this will be their permanent home for a while.
Hopefully this is a permanent home for them until long after I'm gone.
Okay. Ready for a motion?
Yeah. Mike, did you have anything?
No.
Okay. Doug, do you have something?
No, I was just going to make a motion.
Oh, go ahead.
Move that we award the bid to Sands Construction for the K-State extension remodel at the Cushing Building, not to exceed the amount of $690,000.
Second.
Motion and second. Any more discussion? Commissioner Cos?
Aye.
Aye. Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Stephen?
Aye.
Commissioner Culberson?
Aye.
Good news. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Have a good
Thank
day.
you.
Okay. Presentation and discussion items. I know I've got, as we get forward down the thing, I got some public comment that people would like to speak, but I probably, if you could, I probably recommend you hold that off to 10 o'clock because that's when we're going to be reviewing the, if it's for the special use permit for Flatlands. But if people could speak now, they'd like to, but I'd say probably be a better time to do it 10. David.
Mr. Chairman, I neglected to bring this up during admin business. I would ask that you remove the 10:30 item from your agenda, that the County Board of Health will not be meeting.
Okay. We just remove it, or do we have to have a motion to remove it?
Just remove it.
Okay. So, then I'll go on down to additional public comment. Commissioners? Starting with Vicki. You have anything?
Well, I just, attended the Port Authority meeting, and I did the announcement for the Tonganoxie thing, and they also seated a new board, and Chris Donnelly will be the chair now for Port Authority. And,
Oh, that's good. Okay.
I cannot remember who was the vice chair. Doug Shimke for vice chair. So just that
Good.
change has been made, and we will be doing the St. Patrick's Day parade.
Yep.
And I will also be doing 2 kneecap meetings tomorrow afternoon.
On the Green Day. Okay. Thank you, Vicki. Yeah, I'll be with the parade. I think most county commissioners will be there. Looking forward to it. That's all I have. Doug, do you have anything?
I just attended Bayshore City Council last Wednesday. I think what I got next week. Yeah, I'll report on that next week.
Okay. Mike, do you have anything to report?
This past weekend, I attended the State Republican Convention, and I was able to visit with several legislators about the property tax situation and how they need to do some changing.
Yeah. Like we've said before, that's just not working. Anything else, Mike?
Nope.
Go ahead, Doug.
The Commissioner Stevens, is there any hope for anything getting done this year?
I just really doubt anything is going to get done this year. I hope we'll get our tornado relief bill. It still has a chance, but as far as changing the whole system, we're going to have to keep having folks call them, and I hope next session they'll be able to. Every year it gets worse on the property tax thing, and I think folks don't know exactly who to hold accountable, and probably we all should be held accountable, but it certainly is the system that needs to be changed, in my opinion.
Yeah, and we're not the ones telling them to keep the local ad valorem tax money.
Which would lower
No, sir.
property tax.
I forgot another thing, and I don't know if commissioners have been following any of these. There's a lot of bills to follow, but one specifically I wish everyone would like to take a look at is that SB 505, I believe. You had a chance to look at that one?
Which one is that one, Doug? Because I see them all, but I can't remember what they associate with.
What is that one, Doug?
It has to do with zoning. So just get a chance, pull it up and look at it.
Okay, 505.
Yes.
Yes, it's SB 505.
SB
I believe it
505.
is.
Yes.
I've looked at so many bills, I'm trying to think.
Yeah, that's
Yep,
what I
it's
was
505.
thinking.
You're
Okay.
correct.
505.
Yep.
Okay. All righty. Jeff, do you have
Just attended Leavenworth City meeting last night. They talked about showing a letter of support for the Nez Perce Indian monument they're going to put up downtown, I think. Also, they talked about getting scooters for the city, kind of a transportation for tourism thing. And then they're going to improve the trails at Hawthorne Park. The old Hawthorne go-kart tracks up there. They're going to extend, I think, the bike trails all the way through now.
a long time ago?
And House Bill 2606 about the LOVTR is still alive and circulating in Topeka, but I haven't heard the final vote on it yet. This would be rescinding the law they passed to not pay the LAVTR money.
We keep the law in place that was passed in 1965.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
That's it.
That we agreed to because we trusted.
And bottom line, that would return the money back to the counties and cities, which in turn could make a significant difference in the property tax that we're all having to live with. So we'll keep fighting that battle, and hopefully we'll get something out of it. Jeff, thanks for bringing us up to speed on that, too. Okay, if there's nothing else, we're going to, before we adjourn, we're going to come back at 10 o'clock as posted for the review of Resolution 2019-10 Special Use Permit Flatlands CD Landfill. So, right? Yeah, David.
If you could just term it as a recess rather than adjourn.
Okay. Do we need to vote on that or just, okay. Well, good.
I say we recess till 10 o'clock.
Excuse me, Commissioners, are we not allowing public comment?
Yeah, I was going to, but I was going to do it at the 10 o'clock. I got you down for the opportunity on public comment.
Okay. Is that going to be recorded just like this meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. Then I believe that that's fine.
You need to step up to the microphone, please, so that we can have you recorded on the. Thank you.
Is there going to be any limit on that process in terms of my ability to say whatever I need to say on behalf of Flatland?
Well, usually we set a thing out to 3 to 5 minutes, but, I'm not going to stay to that as long as we're not going to try the case here in the the county commission's thing. But you have an opportunity to speak on that and which way you want to go with it.
Okay. Well, I would certainly request as much time as needed to make whatever presentation I need to do. This is obviously a very important issue. You're here today attempting to shut down a private business, so I would assume you'd let Flatland say whatever it would like to say today, and I would ask for that, please. I appreciate it.
We intend to.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's all. We're recessed until 10 o'clock. All right, folks, welcome. We've got at 10 a.m. we're on the agenda is review of Resolution 2019-10, Special Use Permit for Flatlands and CD Landfill. The way we're going to conduct this is I'm going to have presentation first. I think David went to, or Crystal, are you giving it? Crystal. And then I've got some folks to speak on a list here. And then, of course, I got the attorney representing the folks to talk then. Only thing I'd ask is that when we start talking about this stuff, we just don't repeat ourselves. because we can get through this and get to the issues that we've got on hand, and hopefully come up with something workable. But anyway, I'm going to turn it over to Mark. Okay, I'll turn it over to Chris. We'll get started. And David.
Commissioners, good morning. As set forth on your agenda, the purpose of this hearing is to review issues regarding the special use permit that was issued in 2019 to Flatland Excavating. We prepared a short presentation for you that outlines the general issues, as well as photographs to show the conditions that we believe exist at that facility. Crystal, if you could go ahead and start.
Morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners.
Morning.
As you all know, the landfill is located directly outside of the city of Houston, off of Houston Road. The quarry has been in operation in some form or another since at least the 1950s. It's gone through a couple of different ownership changes. Previously, the most recent owner prior to Flatland was Larkin Excavating. They purchased landfill from the county in 2004. The major difference between when Larkin operated it and Flatland operates it now is it was previously a private landfill. Larkin was the only company that was utilizing it. When Flatland took over, they asked that it be allowed to be opened up to commercial and private dumping. In February of 2019, they applied for a special use permit. They requested the following changes. The first is they wanted to amend their hours of operation, lengthening the day and also operating on Saturday. They wanted to, again, open landfill to commercial and private dumping, and they wanted more than 25 trips per day on certain days. There were a number of resolution requirements. Some of the most important on here are that they must ensure that all trash that is being brought to the property is acceptable under KDHE guidelines. This is a construction and demolition landfill. It is not a hazardous waste landfill. They promised that equipment would operate only during normal business hours, that loads would be tarped, and they agreed to abide by all local, state, and federal laws, including their KDHE permit. KDHE has a very clearly defined definition of what a C&D landfill is. I will not take the time to read all of these. I'll give you a moment to just take a look at that. But as you can see, by and large, it is wood, concrete, kitchen sinks, cabinets, counters, very large, very heavy items, not trash, not general household waste. Bricks, concrete, masonry, roofing materials, solid wood, rock, wood products, again, very large, heavy items, no asbestos. And then these are items that are expressly prohibited. Asbestos, garbage, furniture, appliances that have not been appropriately treated, tires, drums, containers, even though such waste may have resulted from C&D activities. The most important in this presentation and over the course of this special use permit is the garbage, the furniture, and containers that we know have been located on the property. In 2020, we began to receive complaints in the spring. Staff began receiving complaints regarding trash and debris along the roadway. We reached out to the property owner, told him of our complaints, our concerns, asked him to remedy it. Mr. Britz did attempt to work with the county. In September, staff began receiving complaints regarding the volume of trucks that were entering and exiting the landfill. And then there also began to be complaints regarding household waste being dumped at this site. Code enforcement followed up on the complaints and at the time found them to be generally unsubstantiated. We were not able to determine exactly what was at the landfill, but it did not appear at that time that household waste was being dumped. However, in 2021, in March, complaints continue to be submitted to staff, and again, the primary complaint is that there is significant debris along the roadway and that household waste is being dumped. Mr. Britz again agrees that there is an issue with the debris. He sends crews out to clean county roadways each week. At this time, staff contacted KDHE regarding the household waste claims. KDHE determined the complaint is unsubstantiated and closed their case at that time. Then in June, we received confirmation that operations were indeed taking place outside of allowed business hours. We sent a letter to the applicant reminding them of their special use permit requirements. In September of 2021, we began receiving numerous calls regarding operating outside approved operation hours, trash and debris scattered along private property, and staff again reached out to Mr. Britz. In December, the landfill appears to be uncovered in a manner that is not acceptable according to the requirements of their state permit. and staff began visiting neighboring properties around the landfill. Here are some photos of neighboring properties. You can see the landfill is directly behind those trees there. You can see that there is indeed household waste that is scattering along. And it is worth mentioning that KDHE does allow for a very small amount of household waste that might be found at job sites, but nothing at all like what is being seen along the roadways in private properties. Again, trash bags, trash, mattresses. Fast forward to February of 2022, and this is what the landfill looks like. They are required to cover the landfill, make sure that it's compacted, make sure that it is stable, and that was not occurring. Mr. Britz had stated that he was having equipment issues, but certainly we had an issue with, as this has been known to be called a trash mountain, getting out of control. And just some photos of the landfill.
Go back to that. Commissioners, I'd like you to notice the scale of the picture. That small yellow object is a bulldozer. So just to give you an idea of the scale. Go ahead.
Again, you can see they're out there. They were out there working, but here's a pond of a neighboring property. It's kind of difficult to tell, but I've actually been out to this property. I have seen it in person. There is a lot of trash in their pond, along their property, in their tree line. You can see a little bit better here. That's their dock there on the left-hand side, and all of that is just trash in their pond directly from the landfill. In February of 2022, the county issued an immediate cease and desist letter, and on February 15th, KDHE followed up with their own letter. They cited the following concerns: improper screening, containers on site, containers overflowing, unapproved waste, and failure to place waste in a manner and at a rate that provided mass stability to the landfill. On February 14th, the property owners did begin cleaning up the property. On February 22nd, as you all know, there was a pretty large fire out there. It is my understanding that has by and large been contained. That fire will continue to smolder under the dirt and the debris for a long period of time. There may be flare-ups from time to time. That's not entirely uncommon in landfills, though. So, the applicant requested staff to visit the site on March 4th, which we did. They had undertaken measures to cover the trash and debris, certainly. However, we do not know what is under the dirt. We do not know. We do not have record that they removed any illegal items, such as hazardous waste or household. Again, these are photos from, I believe, 3 days ago, maybe 2 days ago, of the neighboring property. We still have issues with substantial trash on neighboring properties. Our current concerns regarding this property are that staff is again unable to confirm what has been buried. We do not have proof that the waste has been placed in a manner that ensures stability, and the neighboring properties are still covered in trash. I will answer any questions that you may have, as will David and Mr. Walker.
If you want me to get a copy of what you want to get.
So that, just to be clear, the pictures of the trash on those properties are not on the landfill property. Those are on neighbors' properties around the landfill. Okay. Yeah, I think we can go ahead and roll that.
Okay, public comment. If we could try to keep it to 3 to 5 minutes, I'd appreciate it. The first, if you'd come forward, Greg List. Morning.
Morning. Thank you, Commissioners, for allowing me to speak today. My name is Greg List, and I reside at 22396 Easton Road within eyesight of the dump. In Resolution 2019-10, signed by 3 to 5 Commissioners still on the board, with Commissioner Cosby absent that day, the hours allowed for Flatland's excavating was from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., with that in itself being extremely long for a construction company to work. Yet they still work before 7 a.m. and well past 8 almost every night of the week. Having to listen to machinery run with their tracks and vehicle in motion, motion and alarm sounding is not appealing at 10 p.m. on a Saturday night. Homeowners in the area can't enjoy their free time on their own property. Instead, we have to listen to constant sound of machines working past their delegated work times. It is also in the resolution that the dump is to be closed on Sundays. Well, we have pictures and documentations of dates when they are up and running and have trucks hauling in trash on Sundays. It is also stated that they will have no on-the-road parking. Again, we have photos and documentation showing that they are simply not following the rules and regulations that you put into place for them. The trucks that haul in the garbage and plastic have makeshift netting over their semis that don't fully keep their loads in. Then, when they leave the dump, any material they don't get out of their trailer blows into our ditches and onto our properties. It has been said several times that they can clean the ditches every week, that they clean the ditches every week, and that's a lie. You can see the same garbage sitting in our ditches in the right-of-way for weeks, if not months. It has been said before in your meetings that there used to be not as many complaints, if not any complaints, when it was owned by any other company, and you couldn't be more correct. This dump has become a nuisance for everyone in this area. It has been said in times past that we need a landfill in the county, and that this area is not a highly populated area. I did some research, and in a 1 mile radius from the dump, there are a total of 103 residents. There is a nursing home within that mile that can house 45 residents, and currently right now has 41. Let's just say on average that there are 2 people in each family residence. With that in the nursing home, that is a total of 247 individuals within 1 mile of this dump. I know that there are plenty of other places in the county that the population is well below this number. It does not need to be happening in our backyard, especially the backyard of a residence that owns a daycare that is literally a neighbor to the dump. My kids go to this daycare, and every day I go there, this property's yard is an extra trash lot for Flatland. The dump is not only affecting people's lives, but it is affecting other businesses as well. On the morning of November 5th, a semi-truck loaded with trash rear-ended a woman trying to take her 3rd grader to school. This driver of the semi was actually found to not even have a CDL license, should not have been operating the semi. I know the semi was not owned by Flatland, or the driver was not an employee for Flatland, but where was he going? Why was he in our county? So yes, Flatland is still involved with that, and due to the negligence of that, it just continues over to what's happening at the dump. On February 16th, like stated, that a cease and desist order was issued days prior to Flatland. It was only allowing clean filled dirt. Well, I personally saw 2 semis on February 16th with brush drive into that dump and drive back out empty. So again, not following the rules that you guys set in place. And like in her presentation, that they did cover everything with dirt, but that was with 24/7 work. You got up at 2 a.m., you saw nothing but lights and machines working. 4 a.m. for a week straight. The dump is still smoking, and if it's clean to breathe, then it shouldn't have the awful smell that it is putting off right now. I will end with this. Flatland's SUP is for 38 acres that he has now, but he has now bought an additional 189 acres around it. So how much longer will you guys let this go? Will you guys continue to allow him to run this business here until 227 acres of land is a dump? I hope that you guys agree with the voters and residents of the county in eastern Kansas. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Howard Crook. Morning.
Morning. My name is Howard Crook, and I reside at 31871 223rd Street in eastern Kansas. I'm here to address the board today with our concerns. I'm not going to get into all the details. I've had a lot of people contact me, and so I've compiled a list that I'd like to hand over to you guys after this meeting. But it's my concerns, our residents' concerns, and we've got some issues. As Mr. List just presented, I too have documented almost all of this traffic that he just stated. I sat and I watched quite a few of your meetings, and I watched the special use permit, the applications. And while we in the county duly appreciate you guys dicing and tearing these apart, and how many vehicles are you going to have parked? Or do you have a fence? Are you going to have road traffic? Are you going to have people parking on the... I mean, you take a lot of stuff into consideration when you do these special use permits. And when I start going through our applicant, if I was to apply for a special use permit, the Planning Commission may recommend issuance of special use permits. The Commission may recommend issuance of special use permits whenever it finds that the proposed special use at a specified location will contribute to and promote the economic development, welfare, and convenience of the public. Our community needs to know or have explained to us how this promotes economic development, welfare, or the convenience. There's none there. The next one, the special use will not cause substantial injury to the value of other property in the neighborhood in which it is located. An industrial-sized landfill, which is in full view from many angles within our community and my backyard, definitely has an impact on the value of our property. The proposed special use, the location and size of the special use, the nature, and the intensity of the operation. These are all going down through our special use if somebody were to apply for a special use. And connection with and or location of the site. How does this landfill not dominate the immediate neighborhood and neighborhood property? The location and the trash can be seen from several areas throughout the community. The size of the piles of trash is several feet high in nature. We deal with trash, stink, smoke, dust, noise, and then the intensity of the operation is devastating to those of us who live near the landfill. The location, or the off-street parking, there's trucks parked down there at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning on 227th. There's trucks parked there 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. It's part of your special use. That's not supposed to be happening. Adequate utility, drainage, or other necessary facilities have been provided. What keeps this drainage from this landfill from entering neighboring property or Stranger Creek? There's a lot of Leavenworth County that lays south of here that Stranger Creek borders. I more than support growth in our community. And the previous SUPs that you've approved in our area are very good. We have no complaints. We had no complaints with the previous owner of this. This guy would come up and knock on your door and sit down with you and say, do you have issues? Is there a problem? He would address them. We never, and I tell you, I'm 60 years old and I've lived on that farm since 61. And my grandpa bought it in 47. We've never, ever had an issue on this hill before.
Okay.
So
thank you, Mr. Crook. I appreciate your comments, sir. Brandon Willis. Did I get that right? Good morning.
Hi. I own a dumpster service in Tonganoxie, and I use the landfill quite often. They're very nice, very polite. Back on his comment of the economics of the county and then affecting it, I rent these dumpsters to farmers. They fill it up with C&D. We take it there. It's a cheaper avenue for them to get rid of their stuff versus it getting pushed off into Stranger Creek versus it get pushed off into neighboring ditches and stuff like that and letting it rot out. I don't know what they could do to get this situation rectified, but I would hate to see this landfill go away. Thanks for letting me speak, and if you have any questions, you guys can always call me right there at Albie Wise Salvage in Tonganoxie and have a dumpster service that can help. So.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you.
Tammy Jones. Good morning.
Good morning. Hey, I'll make this short and sweet. We own the farm ground right butted up to this landfill on the south and the southwest. My question is, what about the contamination running through our farm grounds into the creek? It's not only me, it's every farmer right on down clear to Tongi and on down into Lawrence. And our concern is if it contaminates our ground, what about our crops, and who will be responsible for that? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Sharon Wagner. Good morning.
First, I'd like to thank you guys for hearing our concerns. I'm Sharon Wagner. I live within, I would say, half a mile. Actually, I live straight across from the landfill. If you sit on my front porch, you can get a front row seat to the trash, to the smell, to the hearing of everything that's going on. A front porch that my family has enjoyed for over 33 years. My husband and I built this home when we first got married. It is family property that's been in the family since 1942, 47. So I've experienced this life in this rural area my entire life that I have given my kids that I had hoped to give my grandkids, that they can enjoy being at home and have this rural life in this neighborhood and this community that we love. It's directly impacted my family financially, as the value of our home that we have built and spent 33 years building and developing has devalued it. And so my husband and I are lifelong residents. We've vested an interest in this community. We have been part of many programs that have built this community and have built the schools and the industry in this area. We have been part of this community, so we have seen the numerous owners prior to this one and never have had this type of issue. And I find it very troublesome that the concerns that have been put forward over the last 2 years that you've heard today are concerns that we've highlighted. And I will tell you, there has been an effort by Mr. Culbertson to try to work with this current operation to build an area that we maybe could work within. But for instance, some things that we have been told last April, May, we said, it's okay, everything's going to be okay. By next November, next September, your view is going to be covered and you're going to have rolling grass that you're going to get to look at. Well, February 22nd, what we got to look at was an outstanding fire that had who knows what type of substance in the air that my family was introduced to. It was not the attempt to keep that within the regulations of that SUP. And that's what I'm mostly concerned about, is the disregard to this body and to the community to follow that SUP. We continually hear I'm not going to repeat everything. Living where I live, I hear everything. We hear the trucks going, we hear the bulldozers running, 24/7 after the fire. Laying in my bed, all I heard was backup noise and trucks roaring and them trying to cover that fire so that it didn't impact my family even further. I will tell you the one thing that I am mostly concerned, and I voiced that in 2 letters that I have sent to the county, one to the county appraisers, one to you back, I think in December, is that I believe that during this time of the pandemic, there has not been enough oversight to the type of material that has been put into that landfill, some of which is KDHE not doing on-site visits during this time because of the regulations. But I definitely think that the current operation took advantage of that type of situation and allowed for the dumping of certain materials when there was no on-site inspections. Okay. So in closing, I know my time is up, I just want you guys to know that we're disappointed that this has negatively impacted ourselves, our community, our neighbors, and I really hope that you take an opportunity to think about the residents that have been in this community and have provided such a great community and neighborhood for our kids to attend in this environment. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. John Wagner. Morning.
Good morning. How are you all? First off, I want to thank you for taking the time to address the Flatland special use permit. Probably what I'm going to say you probably have heard, and over the period of time and everything else, I live within a half mile. That was my wife right in front of me that we can view it off our front porch. The fires, the trash, the debris that blows over into our trees and everything else. That I luckily work for a utility company, and I bring home a long stick to pull the debris out of the trees and different things. But with that being said, there's a few things that I'd like to talk about, and some of them are a few items that I'm particularly concerned with is the safety on the state and highway and the county roads. The number of large trucks that flood the roads from early at 6 o'clock to as late as 9:30 at night. That run up and down the road, and I know a good percentage of them are not owned by Flatland, but they do take advantage, and the more loads they haul, they're going to run as fast as they can when they can, and they communicate with each other when We put our police force out there to address the roads. They radio, they slow down that day, and then once they're not there, they pick up the speed and they run again. So, I mean, that's how they make their money, the truckers, and that's just the way it is. In addition, there's times I've reported to Commissioner Jeff Coberson where the trucks were running outside the SUP. Times there are a couple specific incidents that I'd like to address. One of them was rubber track loader that was hauling gravel down the road that to a neighbor to put rock on for his driveway. The loader was coming down around the corner, going to the south. We were hauling cattle that day, and when he came around the corner, he was bouncing a little bit too much, lost control, ran off the road in front of the truck and the trailer and into the field. There's also been issues, mud on the road. I've actually cleaned it off because there was a couple times, or one time that the mud was some large clumps that I don't think a car would have been able to get over. That I had a skid steer, went down, cleaned the road off, just because. And there's several things that I think that we need to look at, and some of them are our buses, the driveways, kids driving to school. The concern with the truck traffic in a residential area and the amount of truck traffic that we have going in that area. Also, I was addressed that the fire is 99.9% out over at the landfill, and this week you can see from our house on the northwest corner where it looks like a smokestack, smoke coming out of it. And then the fire department, one of the firemen on the fire department told me that it was steam coming off the dirt because it was so warm. Well, that ground was covered with snow for 3 days, so I don't believe it was steam, but that's my opinion. I really hope that you guys take consideration of the safety hazard when you make the decision, and I appreciate your time today.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming in. Mike Getz? Morning, Mike.
Good morning. My name's Mike Getz. I reside at 18352 Shawnee Road in Leavenworth, Kansas. Even though I don't live in Easton, Kansas, I have ties to this community. My mom was born and raised there, my grandparents and aunts and uncles, and who knows who else. But when I come into Easton 4 different ways. And when you see this, it's an eyesore. And I'm not pointing fingers, but I don't know how it all got out of hand the way it did. And I can attest to the residents that live around this when I do custom belling and all that. I've seen some of this stuff, debris come out, bags and things into the hay fields when I'm belling. And I think to myself, I said, man, I don't want to see a small community like that get degraded. And when you look in time, when a city gets degraded, it becomes like a ghost town. People move away. Nobody wants to move into Leavenworth County. So I'm here today to support the residents around them, as well as myself with the ties, because I come out to visit relatives as well as anybody else. So thanks for hearing me out.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. Okay, Mr. Ryan Bowden. Where's he at? Ryan Bowden. Who's the attorney for?
My name is Ross. You said Ryan.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's got it written down. I apologize.
Yeah, no problem. So I'm going to reserve my comments toward the end.
Let me tell you one issue we got to handle. So we've got the county councilor has to leave here at 10:45, so I'm probably going to have to go into recess until about 11:15. So it's up to you if you want to start now or do it later, continue. It's your choice. I just want to let you know we will have to take a break that runs past 10:45.
Okay, that's fine. What I would suggest is we get to public comments, and then I can close it out.
We're through public comment.
That's everything?
We have one more.
Okay.
We got one more?
Yeah.
Okay, proceed.
How about no?
No.
Morning.
Good morning.
I'm Derek Fee. I reside up by Cameron, Missouri. I've been to the landfill since, for the past 9 years, since John Larkin has owned it. Prior, I went to Johnson County to 2 or 3 of the different landfills down there, as there's many in Johnson County. You see, unfortunately, there's landfills everywhere. I picked up a machine at a landfill that I bought in Edwardsville, Kansas. And, it was more or less in a residential area. There's bound to be, I'm a demolition contractor by trade, even in an old house, there is still plastic bags. There's sometimes stacks of paper, head high, and scattered all over. I'm not saying that there isn't probably some trucks that don't clean out like we do. My 2 trucks, we clean out every time. But I can understand everybody's local point completely. But there's other places I can go. I've known John for quite a long time. Known John about the same amount of time. Obviously, he has nothing to do with it anymore. But it's kind of a nice place. We'll stop at the gas station. Not the best thing to say. Oh, well, I'm driving to the landfill, but we're cautious on the road. At least my trucks. It's not everybody. Obviously, there's a few things that for sure need to be rectified, but hopefully you guys can come up with some sort of solution.
Okay. Appreciate your comments. Thank you. Thank you. Julie gets it.
So I wanted to make sure I understood your comments. You got a recess at what time?
10:45.
Okay, so we have about 12 minutes here, maybe.
About 15 minutes.
There was one more, Ashley Richter, wasn't on your list? Or left list? Ashley.
I had that one canceled out on me.
No, she's here. I see her pointing.
Well, Becky told me she wasn't here.
Oh, she's here. Ashley's here.
Another
Did you want
comment?
to?
Ashley.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll step out of the way then.
Sorry.
No worries.
Morning, Ashley.
Hi, I'm Ashley Richter. Some of those pictures that were posted of the pond and the daycare is my residence. My biggest concern is I did get fined by this KDHE for trash around my building because it was up towards the building. Last year they did come out twice and clean it up. One of the times that they were out, they used their personal vehicle on my property to drive it. I never discussed anything with them, but my grandfather did. He's passed away since then. And I assume the agreement was they were going to send somebody out, once a week to keep the trash picked up. And I am still picking up trash every day. It's in my trees. I have 11 acres and it's covered. I have animals out there. It's in my pond. It runs down into, my fence line is where you see all the trash. The fence or the netting is not up correctly, like they said. They did come by last week and pick the trash up out of the pond, but I've never personally had anybody come up to my house or to me and say anything, that they would pick it up, that they had plans to do anything with it. It constantly smells. The smoke has affected my business, and I have, had to put money into the fines that I have received for that. So.
Well, thank you. Appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
How'd you, I think it's the last one. Did you want to start or do you want to?
Yeah, I might as well go ahead and get
Okay.
started so we
Go
don't
right ahead.
Waste anybody's time. Let's go ahead and get started. We'll see how far we get. Okay. Just so everybody knows, my name is Ross Bowden. I'm an attorney at Sandberg Phoenix in Kansas City. I'm an attorney representing Flatland and have a lot to say today. I'll do my best to move through this quickly. Just so that everybody is aware, there is a lawsuit on file that's been filed against the county and the Cedar County Councilor. That is ongoing. Of course, we're not here to talk about that today. Today, I want to have a discussion first and foremost about this process that has taken place. What's happened here, so everybody understands, is the Leavenworth County government has shut down a private business. Think about that. The Leavenworth County government has shut down a private business, and they have done so without telling them exactly why. Let that sink in again for a moment, because it's hard telling who's next once that starts. Do you want them to come for your house, your business, without explanation? I don't think anybody wants that, and I don't think any of the commissioners want
Excuse me. I'm sorry, Mr. Bowden.
Sure.
You need to speak to the commissioners and not to the public, please. Okay?
Sure. Well, this is a public comment. So
No, you are public comment to the county commissioners, and you need to speak and address the county commissioners, not the audience. Please. Thank you.
That's fine.
Okay.
I have the right to say whatever I want. So,
Right, you can say what you want, but actually, you have to follow the protocols of the Board of County Commissioners, and that is that you speak to the Board of County Commissioners and not to the audience.
Let's go forward. Come on.
That's fine. I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I think
Commissioner Stevens.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I think one thing that I would like to have, and I meant to jump in before the attorney started speaking, but I wanted to have David kind of outline legally we have the ability to exercise police powers on these matters. I'd like to have David just kind of relay what the 4 police powers are and what our actual authority is.
Commissioner Stephen, if I could, Mr. Bowden kindly pointed out that I'm a defendant in a lawsuit filed by Flatland against the county, so I'm probably going to ask or suggest that I reserve comment on that issue. This is subject to litigation that was filed yesterday. It had its first occurrence before a federal court judge yesterday afternoon. Since it's ongoing litigation, I'd suggest that I offer no comment at this time.
Yeah, Commissioner Stephen, let's let him go ahead and present so we can move forward with this. I want to make sure you have an opportunity. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. So you all may disagree with my comments. That's fine. We're not going to adjudicate those issues today. The federal court will. But what I would like to ask the commissioners is to tell me and the public, since this is a public process, what exactly are the reasons this business is shut down? I was handed this document, this front and back page document this morning as this started at 10 o'clock that sets out a list of violations. Nobody's ever seen this before. Flatland's never seen this before. This has never been produced at any point in time prior to 10 o'clock this morning. This isn't a hearing. This is an ambush. Due process requires the county to tell people what they're accused of before they take their business and take their property. That hasn't happened here. But what I would like to get from the commissioners is this a full list? Do we finally have a full list of what is being accused against my client? Can anybody confirm that?
I can tell you no. That is not a full list.
This is not a full list. And so we're going to continue participating with this review process today without a full list of what the commissioners are considering against Flatland. So it's just a fact. Flatland does not have notice of what it's being accused of. We've just established that. So how can we have a fair process here?
How did you establish
No, don't question.
Yeah.
No.
I'm happy to take questions.
No, go ahead. We want you to
I understand why you probably don't want to ask me any questions, but I'm happy to answer them. So the other thing I would like to ask is, have the commissioners already made up their mind?
Of course.
Is that a no from everybody?
That's why we're listening to you, so we can make a good decision that is based on due process, which we have given you.
Okay, well, of course, we dispute that. But if that's true, and I want to believe the commissioners are telling the truth here, then tell Flatland what it can do to alleviate the county's concerns. Tell us. If there's anything beyond,
you got to call
might,
1 second. Okay,
if
go
I
ahead,
might,
David.
the memorandum that I presented this morning to you, I believe, is composed of the list of violations that were submitted to Flatland by the Kansas Department of Health and Environment on February 15th. So I think the claim that they've never seen these issues before, well, I'll just allow you to make your own judgment on that. KDHE was out there in 2021. KDHE was out there in 2022, and both times, well, at least in 2022, issued a letter of violations to Flatland. They know what the issues are. But again, since this matter is in pending litigation, I'll end my comment right there.
Thank you, Mr. Counselor. First of all, I would dispute that. Has Flatland ever received anything from the county outlining specifically what it's being accused of? The answer to that question is no. There have been piecemeal complaints from time to time that Flatland has received, and Flatland has repeatedly promised to take care of those issues. There's a process for how this all needs to be handled. If there are concerns with the public by the county, Flatland is more than happy to address those. No business is perfect. Flatland's no exception to that. It's not a perfect business. It's a landfill business. There are inherent challenges with running a landfill business. Smells, trash, those things are going to happen, but those are solvable problems before escalating to a forced government shutdown of a private business without telling them exactly why. I'm going to read to you what the cease and desist letter said to my client. It says, "It has come to the attention of the Planning and Zoning Department that some of the conditions of the special use permit, DEV 19024, and the provisions of KAR 28-29-308K have not been adhered to. The non-compliance has led to the creation and maintenance of a significant public nuisance." That literally says nothing. Some of the conditions of the special use permit have not been adhered to. Some of the provisions of some cited Kansas statute have not been adhered to. That literally means nothing. How could Flatland look at this cease and desist letter and have any opportunity to know and understand what the county's concerns are and respond to those concerns in any meaningful way? There's no way Flatland can respond to that. There's no identification of specifically what the county wants Flatland to do or what specific provisions of the special use permit or this Kansas regulation have allegedly been violated. That's nowhere in this cease and desist letter. Is there a reason for that? Does anybody want to explain what went into that process?
Mr. Bowden, the county commissioners don't answer questions during the public comment, but there will probably be discussion, I'm sure, once we've passed through that phase. So we'll not answer the question that you're asking right now.
Okay.
That's not the way that this process works.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Commissioner. So that's fine. If the Commission doesn't want to answer my questions today, that's fine. It's your right if you don't want to answer those questions. One would think in a fair process with fair questions being asked that the Commission, who's shutting down a private business, would want to answer those questions.
Mr. Chairman, may I interrupt?
Go ahead, Dave.
Mr. Bowden's client is currently suing you. Mr. Bowden is their legal counsel. I think his questioning of you, since you are now adverse parties to an action he brought in this public hearing, is improper, and I direct you to not answer his questions.
And see, that's what I was going to say. My history in public service over 40 years. Once we've been sued or anybody has been sued, that's it. Now, I'm not saying we can't work something out or we can't come down the line, but I'm not going to answer any question. He filed a lawsuit against us. We're working through what it is, but I don't intend to answer any of the questions. They'll be answered through the legal staff, whether it be through David or another carrier. And that's no disrespect to you. It's just, you understand this, you're an attorney. It's like, once you say something, you go down the road further, and we're not going to do that. I want to give you the opportunity to present yourself, present your case, your questions, and I understand them. And I understand the folks that we're talking out here. But I think now it's time to let the legal staff handle what they're supposed to be doing since it's been filed against us. Go ahead, David.
Mr. Chairman, again, with apologies, I scheduled an eminent domain hearing several weeks ago. In the interest of maintaining the schedule for that public project, I need to go across the street.
We'll recess until 11:20. I understand 11:20 we'll start back up. Thank you.
Mr. Commissioner, can I just clarify one thing? We're going to recess until 11:20. I'm still going to be allowed to continue my presentation?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you all. I appreciate it.
All right, thank
See
you.
11:20.
Folks, being how attorneys are, we're going to have to recess for another 10 minutes. I apologize. I'm trying, if I have to, I have the deputies go get him, but you need to give me about 10 more minutes before we get started. So we'll start back at 11:30, hopefully. Thank you. Okay, folks, I hate to say this again because I know you got better places to do, something like that, but we're going to have to go to 11:45. We're still waiting for the counselor to come out of the judge's chambers across the street. So please be patient, continue to visit, and hopefully we'll get this thing rolling in the next 15 minutes. Thank you for your patience. Okay, we're going to come back in. I think we were still talking. Yeah, if you want to step back up here. Thank you, folks, for being so patient with us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to continue on here. I guess we all should know whenever an attorney says 30 minutes, you should at least multiply that times 3.
I knew better than that. There's no doubt.
Okay, so I think we ended kind of at a good time to segue into a different part of the discussion. We talked a little bit about Flatland's issues with the process. I'd like to talk a little bit now about where do we go from here. We've got a government shutdown in place of this private business. We now have some list that's been given to us today, right at the start of this hearing. It's not a complete list, as we heard, but let's get that. Let's get that. On behalf of Flatland, I would request the commission, whoever else is involved with this, get us a list. Let's start having a conversation. Flatland, as you probably know and should know, if nothing else from the meeting last week, from my appearance there, has offered to start a dialogue. Let's have a conversation. But that conversation has to start with a full and complete list of what the issues are, and then let's figure out how to address them. And what I would implore on behalf of Flatland is that the unbelievable step of a government shutting down a private business would be the last resort anybody would want to take. I know that many commissioners in prior meetings have expressed support for capitalism, free markets, that sort of thing. Well, consistent with those beliefs, let's engage in a dialogue. Let's figure out a way to make the free market work here. That shouldn't be too hard, I don't think. We've got a good start, it seems, from the list that was handed to me today. Let's start having that dialogue, and I can assure you, and the Flatland representatives that are here today would love to assure you, that we'll get it taken care of. But the problem is, in part, we've shut down a business, not allowing it to bring in any money, and at the same time complaining about things that are going on in that facility. So you're asking a business to fix things while tying both hands behind its back. That's not fair. I don't think anybody would argue that that's fair. Now, I know that some commissioners would argue, well, look, as we saw in the presentation today, which, again, nobody has a copy of that. Flatland has never received a copy of that presentation. We saw it for the first time today. I'd ask, you folks to send that to me so that we could have a copy and take a look at that. I would appreciate it. But we saw some of these concerns, and apparently some of these concerns date back. I think the date I saw, going off of memory, was back to 2020. And, if you actually look at what has happened, though, we can show you numerous instances where there's text messages with commissioners at 10 o'clock at night saying, "Hey, Sean, there's trash on the highway. Will you go pick that up?" Sean responds within a couple of minutes, 10 o'clock at night. "I'll get on it tomorrow." That's how these things should be handled. Let's continue having a dialogue, but it has to start with letting this business operate. It can't fix things with both hands behind its back. Then let's start having a dialogue about how we move forward. Now, to address a couple of those things, parking on the highway has been brought up. I would appreciate an explanation from somebody on behalf of the county to tell us how we are supposed to police public highway. We can only ask our customers to do so much. When they're not on our property, we can't police them on a public road. I think everybody would understand that. So if there's an issue with people parking on a county road, then the county should get some police officers out there and police it. That is the county's jurisdiction. That is not Flatland's jurisdiction. As to some of the trash that's being found on the highways, sure, I can't imagine there's a landfill in this country that doesn't have some trash surrounding the highways around it and the adjacent properties. I can't imagine that doesn't exist. But that is a fixable problem. Tell us where it is. We'll go fix it. These are all fixable things. When there's trash blowing from a customer's vehicle when it leaves the property, we've seen allegations today that the beds aren't tarped, and that's allowing trash to blow out while some of the customers' trucks are driving down the roadway. Again, we can only do so much. Flatland has asked its customers to tarp the beds. Will continue to ask its customers to tarp the beds. But if they just don't do it, what is Flatland supposed to do? Again, the county can get some police out there and police the highways and enforce the rules that already exist. I think it's a fair position to say that the county bears some of that blame. Nevertheless, Flatland's here again, just like last week, just like we've had in repeated emails. We're offering to have a conversation, continue the dialogue, but again, it has to start with letting us know exactly what the problem is. And we haven't received that yet. Still to this day, we've been shut down for more than 30 days. We haven't received a comprehensive list of what we're accused of. Prior to this review hearing, we have no idea what's taking place today. I can make some assumptions on what's going to happen today. There's going to be some form of a discussion, some form of a vote as to the special use permit. But we haven't been told any of that. I have been asked to not ask anybody any questions here today. Most processes that comply with due process would allow those accused to call witnesses, to ask questions, to cross-examine the people that are making accusations against them. That hasn't happened. Now, you want to say that this isn't the appropriate forum for that? Fine. That's an argument you want to make. But, again, the county has shut down a private business, and you're not allowing these basic constitutional rights to take place. So, again, getting back to some of the other issues, we heard some mentioning of operating outside of business hours. Well, let's take a quick look at the special use permit.
Paragraph 2 of the special use permit says the business shall be limited to the hours of 7 a.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday. The business. Well, that's a pretty vague term. Does that mean customers coming in and out? Does that mean Flatland's own employees and owners can't attend to the property during those hours? I mean, that is a vague provision. Now, that's a problem, for the county if it didn't negotiate what it intended for this business. But again, that's a conversation we can continue to have. If you want a quiet period, things like that, that's part of a dialogue that a county can have with a private business. But that should have taken place before it was shut down, before we have this, quote, review hearing today that we still don't know what is going on today. At what point are we going to have those basic constitutional rights? And I know, I can sense your frustration. I can sense that you all don't agree with some of the statements that I'm making. That's fine. That's part of the process. But let's have a dialogue before the government shuts down a private business. So there's other ways that we can try to address taking care of some of these problems, by the way. If there are issues with not enough screening taking place, not enough compaction taking place, whatever concerns that the county wants to have a conversation about, let's have those conversations. And again, let's take a look at the special use permit, though. The special use permit limits Flatland to 8 employees. Okay, so the county wants Flatland to do more. Well, then let's talk about letting us hire more employees. That's something all positive we can all agree on, isn't it? To have this business create more jobs for the county, that should be something everybody can agree on. Let us do that. Let's take a look at that part of the special use permit so we can employ more people, get more jobs into this county, good blue-collar jobs into this county, and address some of these problems. But we need a bigger workforce to do it, quite frankly. There was some mention about a fire that took place. I believe the date is February 22nd. I want to address that just briefly. First, that fire took place after this government shutdown. So the fire cannot be used as a basis for shutting down this business. I think we can all agree on that. But let's talk about something else that hasn't been said today, which is fires are incredibly common on landfills. Tens of thousands of fires happen at landfills all across the country every year. It is an inherent challenge to a landfill business. It's a constant challenge. Any operator of any landfill will understand that. But again, if there are things the county wants Flatland to do to help safeguard against those things, let's have that conversation. One other thing that I would like to raise is, reading between the lines, it seems like the purpose of this review is ultimately to take away Flatland's special use permit. That's what it seems to be. If I'm wrong about that, somebody please let us know. We'd be happy to know that. But that's what it seems is going to take place. That's what it seems is the goal of this review, is to take away that special use permit. But we've heard members of this commission, and if members of the public do not understand this landfill isn't going away just by taking away Flatland's special use permit. The county needs a landfill. The county probably wants a landfill. Members of this commission have acknowledged that need. I don't think there's any debate about that. So, if it's not Flatland, it's just going to be somebody else. Now, why doesn't Flatland deserve this opportunity to continue running this business?
There's been mention of a desire by the county to take it back. Is the county trying to just take over this landfill for itself? Is that what's going on? I mean, we don't know because we haven't been told what is going on. What are we accused of? And we're trying to have that conversation. The last thing that I would like to say before closing is none of the discussions, meaningful discussions, have actually taken place in the public eye. I imagine when you all have your discussions about this, you're going to try to have it in executive session. You're not going to let the public know what's being discussed. I hope I'm wrong about that. I'd love to hear, Flatland would love to hear from you all, from what you all think, what concerns you all have specifically. It's been a good process today to hear from the public. Flatland is more than happy to address any and all of these concerns, but let's not have these discussions behind closed doors. Again, is Leavenworth County really going to shut down a private business and have the entirety of those discussions behind closed doors? I would invite those discussions to take place in the open. There are some defects in this process that cannot be cured, but at the very least, can't those conversations take place in the open so that we can all hear it, so that we all know what's being discussed? That's another request I would make. In closing, I think it's been clear what's gone on here. Leavenworth County has shut down a private business without telling it exactly why, and has kept that business shut down for a period of more than 30 days, and now has in its targets the special use permit that will effectively render Flatland worthless. That's what it seems to be the goal of this process. It seems predetermined. If I'm wrong about that, let's have a discussion. I am telling you on behalf of Flatland that Flatland is here today to tell you they will give the county whatever assurances it wants and have whatever discussions the county wants in order to continue its business and continue its special use permit. So if it's not already predetermined, then prove it. Let's have those conversations and see where they go. That's all I have. If you all have any questions for me, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
No, thank you. We appreciate your comments.
Thank you, Commissioners. I appreciate it.
This ends the part of the public comments. We need to see if any commissioners would do anything before I direct some of this to David. Commissioners?
Yes, I have a statement.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I'd like to make. So, a little bit of history, which Crystal went over to begin with on the parcel. This was operated as a rock quarry since 1960. When it played out, the county used it for our own landfill for road and bridge debris. Then we sold it to Corpstein. He used it for very limited capacity. Then he sold it to Larkin, who used it pretty much just for their own business debris, and again, very small scale. There was a protest petition when Larkin applied for their SUP because neighbors were afraid the new owner would turn it into a big operation. He didn't do so, so the neighbors were okay with it for the most part. I'm sure that's why there was no protest petition filed when Flatland took over. We all assumed it was going to be business as usual, but that was a mistake. The current owner not only increased the truck traffic dramatically by opening up to the public, he takes a lot of debris from transfer stations in Missouri. He stated himself, I think 80% or more of his debris comes from not in Kansas even. Most of the debris doesn't even come from Leavenworth County. So in my opinion, this is way too much operation for a landfill that's not zoned to be a landfill. They're operating under a special use permit. A special use permit only works if the business is a good fit for the neighborhood, or at least doesn't cause any adverse influences, public nuisance, or hazards to the local community. As you can see by the pictures, this is not the case. In the beginning, after about 6 months from issuing an SUP, I started getting phone calls from neighbors and people along haul routes, much more than normal trash and debris on the sides of the road. I called the owner, Sean, of Flatland. He said he would send an employee out once a week and take care of it. That worked pretty well for a while, but sometimes the debris would build up faster than he could get to it and get it picked up. I could always tell when my phone would start ringing, so I'd call Sean, and he would get on it usually. Sean was always receptive and cooperated with whatever we asked him to do in the beginning. Then I started getting calls about working after hours, allowed by the SUP. When they operate, you can hear the tracks and the equipment and clicking and the engines running and the backup beepers and clouds of dust and smoke for miles in all directions. I called Sean for the first time on this issue about a year ago. He said he would make sure it didn't happen again. For a while, that was sufficient. But then the calls started again. I called Sean again, same promises. So after I started logging all the times they worked after hours, I received at least 40 calls in the last year. I personally drove down there to see if it was just somebody that was, just not happy with Sean or whatever, and verified that they were actually working. Besides working after hours, I started getting calls about trucks parking on the road in front of the landfill before hours, waiting on the gate to open. One neighbor continuously has his driveway blocked and has to get out and ask the trucks to move. This is also a violation of the SUP. Like his attorney just said, Flatland's also said they're not my trucks. But what's their target? Why are they in the neighborhood? I got calls about nails and tires in the road in the landfill, near the landfill. Talked to Sean. He said he sent out a magnet truck periodically to pick up nails in the beginning. Like I said, in the beginning, Sean was always very cooperative and any issues that came up. I like to bring things up, and we work them out and try to keep everyone happy. Sean would say they only complain about him because they don't like him. And I'm telling you, after dealing with this for a couple years, it's not that they don't like Sean, it's they don't like what you're doing. Starting to get calls about mud in the road, leaving the landfill, clumps of road that a car, like somebody said earlier, couldn't even drive over. I get calls from nearby neighbors about trash blowing out of the landfill onto their property. Talked to Sean. He said he would put up a fence to take care of that. So I think you saw the pictures. He put up a very minimal fence, only about 100 feet long and about 10 feet high. You can see by the pictures that doesn't stop hardly any debris from blowing onto the neighbor's property. Not nearly adequate enough to stop it. The neighbor's properties are completely covered constantly with debris from the landfill. The ponds nearby not only have floating debris, they are completely saturated with debris covering the entire bottoms of the ponds. I don't think you really got the grasp of this from the pictures, but you could walk across those ponds and not get your feet muddy. The entire bed of those ponds are covered with plastic and cardboard. How are you going to clean that up? It's still that way today. You say you're ready to go back to work, but those ponds are still like that today. That's contaminated groundwater. By allowing this SUP to continue, we're condoning this activity. One neighbor runs a daycare. She was shut down by the state for having debris from the landfill in her yard. Partly shows how uncoordinated the state is when you have one state agency saying there's too much debris blowing out of the landfill onto the daycare property to stay open, and another state agency saying they're good to go back to work. I received calls about trucks using exhaust brakes going down the big hill in front of the landfill. Talked to Sean about it. His answer was, they aren't my trucks. So as this progresses, you want to make us believe that you guys will do anything you need to do, and you're totally cooperating. In the beginning, it was that way. This is not the first thing that we're trying to do. This is more like the final straw, is why we're here today. So his answer was, they aren't my trucks, but he would talk to the drivers and even help me out by making no exhaust brake signs. Since it's a state right-of-way, I found out I can't put no Jake brake signs up because there's a new law saying on state highways they don't allow no Jake brake signs. So I could go into a whole other story about getting the exhaust brake signs up. Almost a year now later, the signs still aren't up. I had to have the city of Easton pass an ordinance to put one sign up, and I've got to get the right-of-way surveyed to put the other sign up on private property. Finding a place close enough, narrow enough to see the sign is a problem. One of the biggest problems became clear in the last year. Probably due to COVID, KDHE and EPA are too understaffed and stretched too thin to monitor this landfill. The county can no longer assume they will make sure this landfill doesn't take in any authorized debris. We asked KDHE to inspect the landfill a year ago, and they turned up things they were doing wrong. So this wasn't the first time KDHE did the inspection and we found something wrong. We sent KDHE an inspect last month, and again they found some of the same things that they were violating last year. So they were told not to do this. Flatland was not screening what was being dumped. There was debris dumped that they shouldn't have taken in. They were not compacting the debris correctly. They had too much open working face of the debris, which is one of the big causes that led to the massive fire that took 4 or 5 fire stations to respond to. Toxic dust and smoke traveled miles. Luckily, the wind was blowing it away from the nearby houses, or they would have been evacuated. Today, smoke is still coming out of the ground, only about 50 feet from one of the neighbors' houses. When the wind blows towards them, they're breathing this toxic smoke. There is no 75-foot fire break around the parcel, which was required, another violation of the SUP. The law says that anyone ever operated the landfill is liable for anything dumped there, no matter if it was dumped there when they operated it or when someone else operated it. So the county is liable for anything Flatland takes in. Without the county, KDHE, EPA, or anyone else besides Flatland monitoring what is being dumped, we open ourselves up to liability. So in closing, I think it is clear, we've heard enough testimony today, that this business is causing a public nuisance, a hazard to the community, between the traffic of more than 100 trucks a day, debris blowing out of the trucks onto the roads, debris blowing out of the landfill itself onto neighboring properties, mud on the roads, nails on the roads, dust and toxic smoke blowing for miles in all directions, no screening of loads being dumped, operating after hours, parking on the road right away, no fire break built, no stormwater control. If it rains on that property, it steeps through the garbage and runs onto adjacent property. Nobody's monitoring that. They did not build stormwater control like was in the SUP, another violation of the SUP. Contaminated groundwater, not adequately compacting debris, exceeding maximum working face of debris, being asked continuously to cover the mountain of trash visible from 5 miles away, and several other minor issues. Almost all the rules that allow an SUP in general are being violated, as well as specific rules set out in their SUP have been repeatedly violated over and over for the last year and a half. This isn't the first time we've asked them to do this. So, that's about all I have right now.
Thank you, Jeff. Any Commissioner? Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. David, input?
Well, Commissioners, you have the authority, general authority under KSA 19-101 its sequence, full panoply of Chapter 19. One of your duties is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Leavenworth County, and that's a broad power, and I think that could certainly, it's something to be considered. With respect to this instant matter, one of your options is to move towards a vote on the special use permit. And I'm going to suggest that not be done today. One of your other options is to continue this hearing to a later date, giving Flatland the opportunity to review the list of violations that was presented to them. And Commissioner Culbertson, if you could provide what you believe to be a list of additional remediation actions or violations. Allow Flatland time to look at that and submit the plans and proof of actions, particularly with respect to Section 1 of the violations list, because that deals with the KDHE violations that Flatland represented to KDHE they would correct. Well, let's allow them to show proof of those corrections. The other matters, I think, are fairly well spelled out. And if Flatland is telling you they wish to have a conversation or dialogue or whatever you wish to call it, and that they will make good whatever wrong has occurred, I suggest you give them that opportunity, but that rather than in past action or past times when I believe representations were made with no action being taken, proof's in the pudding. See what Flatland actually does with respect to offering a plan of remediation and undertaking those remediation steps that can be undertaken in the very near future, if not immediately. With respect to that, you have the options of temporarily rescinding the cease and desist order and allowing Flatland to operate on an interim basis while they correct these violations to your satisfaction. Or you can allow the cease and desist to remain in effect until an additional review period to see what actions Flatland takes and what actions Flatland proposes to take in the future, so that hearings such as this are not necessary. But that would be my suggestion, that you consider those options.
Okay, thank you, David.
I had a question.
Go ahead, Doug.
On the temporary portion, what you were talking about, how many days or what would be a time frame that we would you would recommend allowing for all these violations to be corrected?
Well, Commissioners, some of these could be done, I think, relatively quickly. Some of them have been represented as already having been done.
Okay.
With respect to a time frame, that would need to be determined through the discussion that Council for Flatland invites. And since they're in that business, I would suggest that they present that timeline to you.
It was brought up that the 227th Street is a county road, and so it would be the county's obligation to enforce the traffic parking of the trucks on it. Would that mean we'd have to pass a resolution and install no parking signs?
Commissioner, I think the intent, and I think it's clear from the language of the special use permit, the intent was that the operations of that landfill by Flatland would not lead to parking of vehicles on 227th Street. As is suggested in the remediation action list that's been provided to Flatland, those trucks have radios. They can schedule the arrival and departure of trucks so as to allow those trucks to be parked on Flatland's operational property rather than 227th Street. You require other holders of special use permits to not park on county roads, and you can do it in this case.
But what authority do we have if, say, the sheriff's department goes out there? They can't write a ticket for parking on the road, can they? If we don't have a resolution that says no parking?
No.
Okay. As far as all the conditions of the special use permit, I mean, wouldn't it appropriate motion be that they would have to comply with all the conditions on the special use permit?
Commissioner, the special use permit sets out conditions for operation. I believe what Flatland is representing to you is that they are not specific enough to provide information to Flatland as to what is the basis for the complaints raised to you and you making to Flatland. Hence, the document that I prepared for you this morning is provided to Flatland, tries to specify in greater detail what is expected of Flatland in their operations.
Okay. And then as far as private property outside of their property, what jurisdiction do we have? I mean, we can't tell somebody to go on somebody else's property.
Commissioner, the cease and desist order that was provided to Flatland mentions significant public nuisance.
Mm-hmm.
If I operate in such a manner that I cause trash and debris to travel to your property from mine, to the extent that's shown in the photographs and has been provided through testimony, I think it's reasonable to define that as a public nuisance.
Mm-hmm. So how would we go about getting their private property portion cleaned up?
You can ask Flatland to take care of it.
Okay.
Actually, you couldn't suggest that Flatland agree to be required to do so.
Okay.
They've evidently, in discussions, they've proffered to do that in the past.
Okay.
Commissioners, may I make a brief suggestion on that?
You need to come up, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'd be happy to. Thank you.
No, we just need you on the microphones. That's why. Thank you.
I understand. On that particular issue, obviously the concern is Flatland accessing private property.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be open to whatever the county suggests as a procedure or protocol for doing that, but just wanted to raise that as an issue. And just overall, this is a good discussion. I would like it to continue, but ultimately, I think it needs to end with a suggestion from the county. We can't guess at how the county wants us to solve these problems. Just a quick comment that I had. Please do so. Thank you.
I think my suggestion will address that.
Good, yeah.
So my suggestion is, according to Article 22, Section 6 of the Zoning and Subdivision Regulations, the following matters are to be considered by Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners when approving or disapproving a special use permit. Character of the neighborhood, zoning and uses of nearby property, extent to which removal of the zoning restrictions would detrimentally affect nearby property, relative gain or adverse effects on public health, safety, and welfare, conformance to the comprehensive plan, traffic and parking, design compatibility with surrounding area, location access, topography and drainage, ecological analysis, air and noise pollution. So following the approval of a special use permit, if it is necessary for the permit to be reevaluated because of a creation of a nuisance or hazards to the public health, safety, or welfare, the Board of County Commissioners may initiate a process to rescind approval of the special use permit. Such procedure will be the same procedure as that followed in the approving of the original special use permit. So it'll include setting up a public hearing, all the procedures that Flatland's attorneys asked.
Hence my recommendation that no vote be taken today to rescind the special use permit. It would need to be published. It would need to go to the Planning Commission, staff review, recommendations made to you. I think the real issue before you today is what can be done in the interim, and the overarching issue is what can be done to provide relief to the property owners, the neighbors of Flatland, for the problems that they've just recited to you. And the operations of the landfill that KDHE has noted, I'll posit this at least twice, on two different occasions a year apart. And how do we proceed as Flatland represents to you, with Flatland operating as a good neighbor and within the confines of the special use permit and Kansas administrative regulations for construction debris landfill, with some guarantee that that will actually occur?
And that's the issue I have, is the issues that happened. It wasn't the first time. Several times before, they were told not to take in certain debris. So they want to go back to operating. We have no way to monitor what they're taking in other than letting them self-monitor. And we've proven that doesn't work. Another issue is the amount of traffic doesn't fit. Some of the reasons we don't issue SUPs is because the traffic is too big. SUP, places that have asked for SUPs outgrow their neighborhood. I don't know how they would fix that.
Commissioners, if I could offer this suggestion, in the document presented, 1B, waste screening not occurring, Flatland could provide to you proof that they have employed persons with sufficient training to conduct that screening, and that there would be a screening person on site at all hours of operation, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. With respect to the traffic, if Flatland were to follow the suggestion to schedule the arrival and departure of trucks, it would allow space within the property of Flatland for those trucks to park, not 227th Street. And I think also that would inherently, to use the words that's been tossed around, reduce the volume of traffic to the landfill and reduce the complaints that you've been receiving about noise and traffic congestion and peril to safety due to traffic.
There was some concern that they would not be able to do this without adding some employees.
Commissioners, if Flatland presented to you a plan to address the violations that are noticed up in this list, and modified by the additions of whatever Commissioner Culverson wishes to offer, the board could consider a temporary allowance of additional personnel, and then Flatland could go to the Planning Commission and request a modification of its special use permit to allow for additional necessary staff.
Okay.
Right now, the special use permit limits
8.
Which I would assume was at the time what Flatland felt was necessary to run that operation, and with the volume that they were that they had at that time. And so it also sounds like there is a substantial increase in volume that has occurred, good or bad. I mean, there has been a substantial increase of volume of trucks that are delivering debris to the landfill. So that would be a significant change, and that is as a direct result of. So that is a change to what is requested and required, and I think maybe I wasn't here to approve that SUP. I was in training. And I probably, as a commissioner, would have addressed some of those concerns in that SUP hearing had I've been present at that, but I was not. So, and I want to also assure you and individuals that are here that a lot of what we're hearing for the first time. I don't get phone calls I don't think anybody in this room could say that they've ever called Commissioner Cos to complain about anything that's over in Easton. That just really doesn't occur. So we're new to all of this, and we're absorbing all of this. So contrary to what is being presented, we do not converse among each other to talk about what's happening. I did not know. I was listening to Jeff's comments today. Listening to his comments for the first time, I have had an opportunity to hear what Jeff has been dealing with Flatland and Easton. We don't talk about that. I did know that for whatever reason, didn't know why, that there was a Jake break issue for something, but I didn't know why because we don't talk about those things out in the back. So
we can't
legally we can't discuss those things. So some of this is new. But what I can say is that when I'm hearing, when we're being told that there's a substantial increase in volume, it does sound like there's been a substantial change to the terms of the special use permit. I mean, of what it was intent and what it was approved of by the Planning and Zoning Department and staff, that I don't think that it ever occurred to them that they would be receiving debris from outside of Leavenworth County, because I don't think that had pretty much had not been the history of that specific landfill in the past. I don't know. I'm listening.
If I could interject a comment there briefly, what I would suggest in part is if the commission is just now hearing some of these for the first time and never have discussed this, then why are we keeping a business shut down? It seems like we put the cart before the horse here, and the county has shut down a business without even discussing it amongst yourselves. I think that's something the commission should think about.
We did, excuse me.
Separately, aside from that, I'll let you finish if you wouldn't mind. Let me finish, please.
You're finished? Excuse me. Excuse me.
Go ahead.
No. This is our business meeting. We conduct it the way we choose to conduct our business meeting. You don't interrupt me. I can interrupt you. This is not a public hearing. This is not a required public hearing. This is not what we're discussing if we had to bring back something to planning and zoning. I'm sorry, Commissioner. I'm sorry, Chairman. You are disrespecting this Board of County Commissioners when you interrupt our proceeding. We're discussing amongst ourselves. We're having our conversation right now.
Let me. Numerous times, but my client would like
but
to
that's
say
okay.
Let me just intervene for a second, if you don't
Sure.
mind.
Go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
A lot of the stuff that we've heard about, or we knew there was I knew there was a complaint up there, but for you folks who don't know, Kansas law, only two commissioners can talk about the same issue at a time. Three of us can't get together and discuss this, so there's been no talk about this whatsoever. So that's the first thing I wanted to make clear, and I think Mr. Cos is trying to do that. Second is, we've got a lot of folks that came to this room, whether the county commissioners have handled it the way you think or we shouldn't, that have showed up on their time to let us know there's a problem. I've seen a lot of pictures here. I have heard, as of today, a lot of promises. Now, I think Leavenworth County needs a landfill. I really do. And we don't want it. So whoever told you that is another thing. But what I think the residents are saying, and I've heard some of them say it, is run it the way it's supposed to be run, and everybody be a happy camper. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to vote today for anything about closing down that. But I'm telling you, and I'm telling the folks, that if this comes back in front of me again, and if we decide to not do what we're supposed to be doing right, I can tell you what's going to happen. Now, it's all out in the open now, so if we're going to make this work, let's make it work and quit saying this person or this, or a definition of something that attorneys like to do is so vague, something like that. We know what's clear and what's not. Come on, let's get real here. And if they talk about the trucks, they talk about the fence lining, folks, you know exactly what we're talking about. So they've dealt with the Planning Commission, and now it's out in the open for everybody. We thought we could handle this, get it done. I'm not here to vote on it today, but I would like to see if there's any room to make this work before it does come down and it does that. But I'll tell you something else. I don't appreciate getting sued before I have a chance to talk about it. So thank you very much. Go ahead, David.
Business says I appreciate getting shut down before.
Well, that's fine.
Mind speak?
Sure.
It's a special use.
I know it. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Christy Britz.
Hi, Christy.
And I just wanted to let you guys know that I think that one of the major things I learned as a child was that communication goes a long way. And I think that is all-inclusive between us, between you guys, between the neighbors, the community. And I think that if everyone would come together and talk and communicate and let us know some of the problems, we know that there's trash, but we can't go on personal property and look for trash. We need to be told where that's at. We need to be communicated with and called and asked to go. We have repeatedly, and I'm sure Jeff will agree, that we have repeatedly, when we've been asked and given a specific place that there was an issue, gone out immediately. I mean, a lot of times within 10 minutes to take care of the problem. And I agree. We've had some times when there's been a significant amount of trash. If you guys remember in December, there was a 95-mile-an-hour windstorm. It blew roofs off of buildings. Yes, there was a trash issue around the landfill. And we were out as soon as that wind died down and picked up what we could find and address. But if there was more, a phone call would have helped that situation. I'm not saying it would have immediately fixed it instantaneously, but it would have helped. We could have gone out and talked to that neighbor and addressed that. And we've addressed a lot of neighbors. We've talked to them. We've tried to be involved in the community and involved in the neighbors' lives and trying to make things work. And I, from the bottom of my heart, will do what I can to make this work. But it's going to take communication.
Well, I have no problem, and I don't know what the other county commissioners do, about putting a list together and getting any information that apparently the pictures or something like that. But my main concern out there is this isn't for us to make it work. It's just for you to make it work.
No, I completely understand
and if you've got citizens out there that are continuing to come up and say it's not going to be addressed, well, I know what the answer is going to be. So I don't know how the county council feels. Let me finish. I don't know how the council feels. I'd like to see these things that Jeff has and what David has and be sent back, and we talk about a timeline to get this going. But this has to end. These people out here they shouldn't be subject to that. And special use permits, they serve at the pleasure of the county commissioner. They can bring one back in if it's not right. And we've heard all these people aren't making this stuff up. It's up to you as a business owner to make this right.
I understand that, and I think that part of the communication process needs to include something where if there's a complaint, that we're not the only ones, or the person that complained are not the only ones that make the decision as to whether it was resolved or not. There needs to be some interaction from someone with the county that can come out and say, we had this complaint, yes, it's been addressed, well, at least for a while, I think it has been. Level ground.
I think it has been, but I think the bottom line, again, it comes up to the company. It's your company. You need to make it right, and everybody can be successful. But these folks coming in and showing these pictures, and whether, he said, she said, I don't care about that. What I care about is we got a large amount of citizens telling us the same thing.
I understand that.
And it has to be corrected if that's the way this board wants to go.
I just think we need a process for how that's going to happen.
Jeff, do you have something else?
Yeah, could I ask you a couple questions, Kirsty?
You can, and I have something else. And I'm forgetful, so I'm just going to say, remind me about trucks.
So, Why has it had such a foul smell for the last 6 months if it's just clean rubble debris?
Landfills have a smell.
C&D landfills should not have a smell like this.
Do you have an expert opinion saying that as a report we could take a look at?
You need to come, please.
I'm just asking.
No, I understand that she can answer the question if she would like to, but also understand that my client's not an expert.
Right.
I'm just asking if she knew why it had.
So she can guess at your question, but also if you have information that you could provide us, that would be helpful too. But you can go ahead and answer if you know.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Why did you take in debris that you were told a year ago not to take in? This last KDHE inspection turned up same things that you were told a year ago from that KDHE inspection to not take in. Why did you guys do that?
I don't believe that I don't think we did that on purpose. I think that there's a certain amount of screening that takes place, and we do screen the material, and I apologize that there were some things that got through that screening process.
You had a screening area?
There has been a screening area.
Because in the KDHE report it said you didn't have one.
On that day?
Any day, I guess. Aren't you supposed to have one every day that you're open?
I think that report was referring to the day of that inspection.
And the KDHE has also stated that it's currently in compliance with all state law, which you all are aware of that as well. You may disagree with that opinion, but that's the opinion of the regulating body.
Yeah, we do disagree with that, because what about the ponds? KDHE said it's okay for those ponds to be contaminated.
We do have new screening signs, and we also have stakes that we are going to be putting up.
So we should say KDHE says it's okay that the ponds are completely contaminated.
Well, the point of this conversation, I think, is tell us what you would like, and then we can address that.
This has been told to them a year ago to clean the ponds up.
Have you told them specifically how to fix it?
I asked them how they were going to fix it.
Okay. Make a proposal would be my suggestion.
Okay. Do you have anything else?
Why do you guys continuously operate after hours, after you've been told dozens of times not to?
Again, I think that that's another one of those situations where we need to have some more communication.
I don't know how much more communication you can ask for. I've personally talked to Sean dozens of times and said, don't operate after hours.
I think there's...
And
I don't know exactly what operate means, first of all.
Operate.
There's been staff
It's pretty
there
black and
after
white.
hours. But as far as equipment operating, if there was equipment operating, there was a reason. And I think we need to have more information on that.
One last thing I heard.
The special use permit says business hours. So I think that there could be some work on what that provision means, which generally would mean open for business to customers, not what they're doing while the office is shut.
I totally disagree with you.
That's fine, and we can have that conversation.
Well, but that's why I think that substantially there appears to be some weaknesses. There appears to be, within the special use permit itself, might need to be revisited. Nobody is asking at this point, or I certainly am not. You know, being accused in advance of something that is not something that is within my wheelhouse is kind of offensive. But there seems to be enough change that perhaps the special use permit itself needs to be revisited because a lot has changed. It does sound like, and we cannot get past the fact that the volume far exceeds, I am sure, I cannot guess what the planning and zoning thought, but I cannot imagine that, I think that they probably thought, okay, 8 people, we're not going to have this huge
business
that is now operating within this neighborhood, because it is a neighborhood. We have to remember that. And that this is a special use permit, and it's because this is not zoned for that purpose. And so we have to be very careful when we go ahead and we issue a special use permit, when we do anything, at all times, we have to try our best to look at the unintended consequences. And I think that there are a lot of them that exist right now with this specific, but that doesn't mean there can't be some assurances or some changes, but we can't change this current SUP. It is what it is. I mean...
Okay, you said you might forget, but did you have something else to say?
That was just about the trucking, the parking issue. I don't know when you guys are referring to the trucks being parked on the road, what time of day that is.
Usually in the morning.
Okay, so we've been asked not to open the gates before operating hours. So when those trucks pull in, they have to be somewhere while they're waiting for us to open. If one possible solution would be that the gates can open, we just can't dump them, and they pull up and pull in onto our property, so they're not on the street. That's one possibility of, if we were to have some conversations, I think we could come up with some solutions.
And that's where business hours isn't as clear as it might seem.
Let me ask you one other thing, if I could.
Sure.
I know this is going on. How many employees do you have right now?
On site, we have...
Just a number. What do you got?
Huh?
5, 6,
I'd
7?
say 5 or 6.
Okay. Have you ever assigned one just to take care of these issues that the county's brought up, and that's their job? Or do you try to pass it around to people to look at when they get a chance? What I'm going at, these are going to have to be things that this is their job description every day.
That's one of the things that we've proposed, is that that's taken care of.
Okay. Mike, did you have anything? Thank you. Mike, you still there?
Yes. My suggestion would be that we let staff and the folks from Flatland have 30 days to come up with a solution, and then if it can be handled before the 30 days, we can review whether their business can open. But it's obvious to me that we don't quite have it in hand what the exact provisions are that we need to follow to get this resolved. But staff could work with them to come up with a list of items that need to be considered, and give them 30 days. But the business stays closed down, because believe me, this issue of saying we haven't given you the violations, we've given you plenty of violations. There's a long list, and the reason you don't have a list that's specific is because the violations that we keep finding keep increasing. That's the reason. So that would be my suggestion, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. Commissioners, what is your pleasure?
I would like to hear from our council.
Go ahead, David.
Commissioners, I think Commissioner Stephen has a good suggestion. I think a 30-day period may be too long to have some review to see what actions Flatland is taking. I do have to tell you one complicating factor is there is now a complaint filed in U.S. District Court against the county. The county's a defendant. I'm a defendant. So conversations between staff and Flatland are between two adverse parties at this time. I would suggest probably through additional counsel have some arrangement worked out where any such discussions are captioned as settlement discussions and cannot be used as adverse testimony against either party. Otherwise, Flatland would never admit to any violation, and the county would be hesitant to offer any solutions that they'd then be held responsible for.
One of the biggest problems with the operation, I don't know how you can make a concession on, is the volume. This is not zoned to be a landfill. This is operating on a special use permit in a residential neighborhood. 200 trucks a day is not going to work. So I don't know how you're going to work something out. I really appreciate Christy's offer on talking it out, but there's the bigger issue. Instead of we're going the wrong way by saying add more employees, the business has outgrown the neighborhood. I don't know how you're going to get around that.
I'd still like to.
issue.
I totally agree with you, Jeff. But I'd still like to have some opportunity, whether it be a week or 2 weeks, whatever, to see if there's a resolution or something that can be done to head in the right direction. Because
this is not an industrial zone.
I know.
This is a residential zone.
I don't agree with that. I don't disagree with you on that, Jeff. I'm talking about going with the original when it was originally set up, what it was supposed to be used for, not the things that we've had complaints about. Go ahead, Dave.
Commissioners, you've heard me use the expression death by meeting, and I take that to heart. However, as much as I believe that, I'd like to suggest perhaps adjourning this hearing at this time and re-adjourn next week, giving Flatland the opportunity to review the list and submit their proposals on how to address the violations. I think, Commissioner Smith, you made a good point. We don't operate that landfill. Flatland does. There are problems. It's incumbent upon them to solve the problem, not the county. So if they are proffering a good faith effort, if they're proffering to reach solutions to these problems, allow 1 week for them to formulate those plans, submit them to the county, and the board can review it again next week. And you'll probably have assistance from additional counsel at that time as well.
But the problem is that right now there's not any way of proper communication between Flatland and the county because our counselor has been named, and so we need to find out, or when is convenient for our attorney of record.
Commissioners, I don't anticipate we'd hear from Flatland before the end of the day. If they got something to you in advance of next Wednesday, that'd probably be sufficient. And they can mail it to us. I would prefer no telephone conversations. It'd be in writing.
Mr. Bowden?
Well, as I've said previously, you're putting Flatland in an impossible position. You're asking Flatland to come to you and tell you how to fix all of the problems that it doesn't know exist. We have a partial list. We're happy to start working on that partial list, but we can't.
But we'll give you everything that we know that we have in front of us. It'll be available to you. That way you can say that. If I saw anything coming, making headway for the trash in people's yard or anything, the fencing, something like that, that's a positive step. And we know it's only a week, but I think you can come up with something with the list we've got. I'm not going to hold you responsible for something we haven't given you. But there's plenty enough there right now to say, let's get on this and move forward. Do you disagree?
Yes, in part because the state has already said some of these items on this list have been taken care of. So you guys apparently disagree with that. Tell us why. We need to know.
We showed you the pictures. We showed you the pictures.
The thing is,
we've seen pictures of trash. Are we really going to continue shutting down a business for the equivalent of a parking ticket? We're talking about trash that has blown out of a landfill.
We don't know what was delivered.
Layering people's ponds that are adjacent.
Listen, I think I'm asking you, we can beat this horse to death and drag it to that pond, but I'm asking you a week to take some of this stuff, if the other commissioners want to, a week and start working on this, because the folks up there are tired. And I know you're saying we don't know what we don't know. There's some common sense things here that I look at that I think can be resolved by communication and just talking. Now, we can keep beating this to death right now, or we can take, if the commissioners want to, we can take that week and let's see what comes of it. I'm not going to vote on it today. I can tell you that right now because I want to see some more things come out. Doug?
Well, if we can get this list, I mean, I don't know what else is an additional to this list.
I'm just saying
we get stuff off this list taken care of and everything. The conditions on the special use permit in compliance.
Get started. Give us something to work with.
Be happy to. Give us something to work with and let us operate in the meantime.
That thing you've got is something to start with.
These are two separate issues. There's a shutdown of a business, and then there are concerns that we can work on going forward. Let's let the business open, and then let's work toward the solution. Again, you're tying its hands behind its back and asking it to fix problems. It needs revenue to fix the problems.
It's had revenue over the last year. When I asked them to clean the ponds out, the ponds are still completely trashed. We're going to let them go back to operating like normal when the ponds haven't been cleaned out?
They can't operate right now. What would you like them to do?
A year ago, I asked them to clean the ponds out.
Okay, again, if there are concerns, we can address those.
Why weren't they addressed over the last year?
Look, we can go tit for tat on every little thing back and forth, like the chairman said, about things that have been raised and haven't been raised and addressed. I mean, let's focus on a solution and a path forward. And part of that path forward is let the business operate.
You're asking to let the business operate after it's trashed neighboring properties and they're still trashed. That's what you're asking.
No. What I'm asking is to let a business operate without a forced government shutdown and then have the government try to tell them, you need to fix all of these things, but I'm not going to let you bring in any money to pay your employees to do it in the meantime. You've got to do it for free and without being able to take on any customers. I mean, that's not fair. That's not free markets. Come on.
The shutdown was pretty clear that it was because of hazardous activities.
Where is that said? Can you point
Did
to that language?
Did you get the KDT, a copy of the KDT report?
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the shutdown. If we want to have a conversation about the shutdown letter, we can. We've already gone over that. All it says is there's been some violations that have not been adhered to. That doesn't say anything.
You're saying it wasn't because of the KDT?
This is Commissioner Stevens.
This came before
You're going to have, if you could have 1 week.
No.
Mike, go ahead.
Mike.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, if we go with what I'm hearing, if you have 1 week, you can work through a lot of these things in a week, and we can decide if you're going to be on the pathway to opening up next week. I think that's the right path to follow. You can't open until we see these things being resolved.
I think we're talking 1 week, and I know you don't agree with it, but I think there's a solution to get what we had. I only hold you accountable for what you see, and you got 1 week. Let's start seeing some progress, and we're back here next Wednesday talking about it to see if we can open you back up. Now, that's just me speaking.
And my only biggest concern is what about the volume of the truck?
I know.
My final ask would be this. We're going round and round here, but let's have an objective, measurable, clear request for what you want us to do. I mean, some of these violations in here that was handed to me today says unapproved waste. We're not operating. Waste screening, not occurring. We're not operating. So those things aren't happening. If you want us to go pick up trash, fine. Tell us where. We'll go do it. They'll get started today.
We cleaned up the trash after we closed, and the highway's trash now. That's my fault.
Some of it in the trees is, Sean. Some of the stuff in the trees is.
I want to focus on
one at a time.
Forward.
One at a time.
Sure. I want to focus on moving forward, and that would be my ask is give us a measurable goal that isn't subject to interpretation, and let's go out and try to accomplish that. But again, I would still ask that let the business operate in the meantime. I don't think it's fair to tie their hands behind their backs and try to have them fix a problem, but still, let's. Can that happen? Can Flatland get a measurable list of what you want it to do over the next 7 days and try to work toward that path?
How many trucks a day are you going to operate?
I don't know the business. You're going to have to ask my clients here. They're not open for business right now. So
if they were to open back up, how many trucks a day would start coming to the landfill a day, roughly?
At this point, we've been closed for over a month, and when we notify our customers, I don't know what to expect. If we wanted to put a limit on that, I guess we could discuss that. But I do agree that we should be allowed to operate in some capacity if we're going to need to address these issues. And I also would like some addresses of where the trash that is specifically been identified are, so that we can go to those places first. Because again, as I said earlier, I can't see in people's backyards, and I can't see things that aren't visible from the road without being on property that isn't mine.
I have a question just when we're talking about temporarily and allowing, you're asking for permission to operate, and then how many trucks or whatever. How many trucks specifically does Flatland operate for delivery of refuse?
Our company, 2.
2? Okay. Because I can't see that, I for the week to allow your business that you have as Flatland to bring in the debris that you're collecting with your trucks might not be okay for a week. I'm not saying then after that, but just so that you can begin to address some of the things, because then those individuals are working. They are your employees, and they will be working. They will be earning an income. So
our trucks don't typically haul in.
So all of your debris is being hauled in from where? That's what
There's just other trucking companies that haul in. People that have C&D material that needs to be disposed of.
Okay.
So it's kind of like at the transfer station. When the transfer station's open, they don't know who's going to come. Their customers show up. And so while it seems easier to control, we have core customers that I will be happy to contact, and we can limit who. We can even, only contact some, not all.
If you could get back to the volume it was when Larkin had it and Corpstein and the county had it, nobody would probably be here. I don't know how we're going to work that out.
Again, I think that we need to have further discussion
Putting a ceiling on a private business
and figuring out.
It's an SUP. It's not zoned to be a landfill.
Guys, listen.
Let's
hold on for a second here. We've said this back and forth. This is supposed to be a discussion for the county commissioners. I appreciate your comments. I know there's people in the audience who could answer these left and right. The bottom line is this, commissioners. Do we want to leave them, or do we want them to come back in a week? We need to make a decision, move over. We're starting to say the same stuff over and over again. We know what the problem is. County commissioners, what is your pleasure?
I make a motion that following the approval process, we ask planning and zoning to start the rescinding of the special use permit for Flatland. That'll give them a public hearing. They can go over all these issues. If they can come up with a solution, that'll all come out in the public hearing.
We have a motion. Any second? Any dies for lack of second? Now, what would we like to say? Go ahead, Mike.
I don't know if you'll be able to hear me. I make a motion we recess the hearing to next week, give the opportunity for the various parties to communicate and report back at the hearing to reconvene next week.
David?
I think Commissioner Stevens' recommendation is appropriate.
Second.
I agree with that. Motion and second. Any more discussion?
Yes.
Doug?
So would staff be working with representatives from the company to get some of these resolved, or who's going to take care of this?
Commissioner, I suggest that you request or offer Flatland the opportunity to respond affirmatively on their part with respect to the list that has been provided to them this morning. A large number of them, for example, they state that they've hired sufficient staff to conduct screening. Just provide proof of employment. They say they've created a screening area by placing poles in the ground. Show us photographs of the poles. They say they put up additional signage. The recommendation there is just show us proof of that. Now, there are some things that will require additional action on the part of Flatland, but you've heard from their representative and from the owners herself that they will make good faith efforts to address these issues. Give them that opportunity.
Okay. And they would be dealing with planning and zoning staff on this?
I would suggest that they prepare a written response and mail it to the Office of Planning and Zoning.
Okay.
If we have questions, who do we address those?
The questions can be submitted in writing to the Office of Planning and Zoning. However, again, I have great concern, communication with you since you are an adverse party in litigation.
That's a fact. So that's a big concern. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
There's no prohibition on communication from you all with me. If you direct me not to communicate with anybody other than an attorney, then that's what we'll have to do.
I'm not comfortable with that. When you get sued, I got to protect the county, and you've got a lawsuit pending against all of us, the county, and I've got to protect the county. So I think what David is the way we should be heading in this direction.
Totally fine, and we'll do. Will you give me that contact information as soon as possible so I know who to
Absolutely.
communicate with? Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr.
Do you have any more discussion on this?
I'd just like to say I'm all for trying to work this out. But
excuse me. Yeah, come on, Dan. I saw you back there.
Now, I've sat back here and I've listened to this and everything else. There's several concerns. They covered that with dirt and everything else. Do we have an erosion control plan? Is there a water detention plan for the water that runs off? We're getting ready to start spring rains. It floods. Everybody knows how bad it floods. I have farmland down there as well as people all the way down to the Kansas River. As far as the trust has been broken in my eyes, and I feel everybody in the community is the same. I feel if they're to open back up, there needs to be an independent EPA party that comes in and checks those loads. That's who needs to be doing the water monitoring and then monitoring of the existing dump. And then that way the county's butt is covered as well as we're satisfied if they are to open. All that expense should go straight on Flatland.
Thank you, Dan.
They need a parking lot for trucks so they don't park on the road, and they need time frame that trucks can come in. If you go to big dumps, hazardous dumps, stuff like that, you're a time frame that you come, and only a certain amount of trucks come a day. Then there wouldn't be the trucks parking on the road or anything else. They've got plenty of room to build a parking lot for the trucks that are there, and it needs to be limited to the amount of trucks that come in there.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it. Good seeing you again, but I think we've got started on something. Let's see where it goes. And we've taken up enough of people's time. I appreciate you being here. We got a motion, a second. I'm going to call David.
Commissioner, did the commission wish to set a time to review this next week?
It's a good idea.
10 a.m.
10
it's
again?
all on the agenda.
Well, I'd like to do it 9 a.m. I have.
We can put it as part of the regular agenda. Mark, is that okay?
I'm going to see what's on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I have a conflict.
Okay, let's do 9 a.m. if you're okay, Vicki.
That's fine.
Okay, Doug, you okay?
Sure.
Okay, let's try this again. Commissioner Collins.
Aye.
Commissioner Smith, aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Stephen.
Aye.
Commissioner Culberson.
Nay.
4-1. We know which direction we got to go. Can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Cos.
Aye.
Aye. Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Stephen. Commissioner Culberson. Aye. We are adjourned, folks. Thank you, everybody out there.